What's going on, guys? It's Cal here from Buffalo SportsCenter. I'm here with Don, and today we're going to be talking about Terry Pegula. And more importantly, will Terry Pegula ever sell, or will he keep his reign on the Buffalo sports teams? This terrorist reign that has resulted in not a lot of success. So, Don, I'll start with you. What do you think about this situation?
Well, if we're talking about the Sabres, yes, I think he will. You look at the amount of money he's currently losing with Buffalo. It's a lot. And it it's not really this point is not really too much of a big piece of evidence, but it's a little clue. Look at the amount of money the Sabres have invested into their recent free agent picks. And look at the amount of term we're giving our players. Jason Zucker, 1 year. Sam Lafferty, 2 years. Henry Yahoo, 1 year. Albe Kubel, 1 year. Beck Malenstein, 1 year. Ryan McLeod on the books for one more season. A lot of players who are only on the books for 1, 2 more seasons. Now, I guess you can easily discount this point by saying, well, look, Tage Thompson's under contract for like 8 more seasons. The same goes for Owen Power, Darlene, Alex Tuck is only under contract for 2 more seasons. Cousins, 6 more seasons. But Turk and Quinn are probably going to get contract extensions. But my point is, look at the amount of money Terry Pegula has invested into this team over the last 2-3 seasons. It's not been much, and it hasn't been. And if he does invest, it's not for a substantial amount of time. It's for a very short-term period amount of time. And he's already put up the bills for sale, 25% of the bills for sale. So it's clear that he's looking for money. I don't know. I got an uneasy feeling about how everything's been going. Cal, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, you bring up some very interesting points. I will disagree a little bit. I think Terry Pegula will want to keep the Sabres for a long time here. Now, the reason I say this is quite simple. I think it was Terry Pegula's dream to own this team. You look at, when Kim was healthy, it was, things were going a little more smoothly. They split operations. But ever since that, health incident happened with Kim, it appears Terry's focus has kind of shifted away from these teams. So that could lead you to believe maybe Terry's ready to move on. But why I say he isn't is because of his children. I think Terry Pegula wants to kind of hand these teams down to his children, maybe the Sabres. Again, his daughters and sons are very busy right now. One of them being a pro tennis star, so it's going to take some time. So I don't see Terry Pegula making any moves with this team until his children are ready to make up their minds whether they want to follow in his footsteps and be owners of this team, or at least partial owners in this team, or if they want nothing to do with it. Again, if I was one of Terry Pegula's children, I would want nothing to do with the Buffalo Sabres the way they've been playing the last couple seasons. With that being said, though, the trajectory is up. The economy has just kept going up and up and up. And as bad as these teams have been, as much money has, that's been poured in. Again, he's making so much money with the Bills, just being a playoff team. You got that new stadium coming in. So, business should be booming in Buffalo. So I don't expect him to sell. I could see why people could think he's going to sell. I could see why people would want him to sell because it appears he sets, an invisible cap ceiling on his teams. Maybe not so much the Bills, but the Sabres seem a little limited with what they can do. But I think that will change, if they get some success. And I think he really just wants Kevin Adams to prove to him that he can put together a playoff team before he gives them free reign. Keep in mind, Terry Pegula has hired clueless, and clueless the last couple times as coaches and GMs of the Buffalo Sabres. So it's really hard to put your faith in anyone when you've been backstabbed so many times by straight up idiots running the Sabres organization.
Yeah, but Cal, think about it too. Look how much the value of the Sabres has increased. He could make a huge profit. If he sold the Sabres now, the profit that he made from the Sabres sale, he wouldn't even have to bother putting up 25% of the bills up for a sale as well. Now, I have been thinking a little bit while you were talking. He probably did put up 25% of the bills for sale to compensate for his part of the new stadium costs and the building of that. Probably, that's my guess, because the bills are like worth $4 billion now or something.
Yep.
It's insane. Sabres are only worth $900 million to about $1 billion. But again, the amount of profit that he could make on a team that has done nothing. This team has done absolutely jag squat since he has taken over as owner. he could simply wash his hands and walk away from the Buffalo Sabres and solely focus on the Bills. You mentioned it before. Kim Pegula is no longer in the picture as an owner. She suffered that stroke, and it doesn't appear that she's coming back anytime soon, if at all. And it doesn't seem like she's going to return to her ownership duties. So, and you talked about how busy his kids are. So even if he doesn't sell now, if he sells in the future, is it because there was no heir apparent to this new sports empire of his? And shouldn't the fact that there is no heir apparent, isn't that concerning for us Buffalo sports fans who hope to not have to go through another John Bon Jovi saga as we saw back in 2014?
Yeah, I mean that's a scary thought for sure, and I think that is also lingering in Terry Pegula's mind. He knows if he puts the Sabres for sale and they get, say they end up in relocation, he knows that's going to be pinned against him. He also is very involved in the Sabres still, which is actually quite shocking because, the media harps on him constantly because we don't hear from the guy. We don't hear from the guy at all about any of the Sabres moves. He's never available to the media. But that being said, he's in there draft day. He's sitting right next to Kevin Adams. He's in that room. Now, does that really help? I don't know. But, he is very vocal. He has a say in what the Sabres do, player wise. He tries to play a part in that. Again, if I'm Terry Pegula, I'm looking at the Sabres. They have so many great prospects, so many picks, coming up in the next couple of years. If I'm going to sell this team, it's not going to be now because this team's trajectory is going to go straight to the moon. You would think. Again, if you have a good GM that knows what he's doing, which again, Kevin Adams has been good with drafting, but not so much on the trade front. If you have a good GM that knows what he's doing, the Sabres have all the tools to create a dynasty. Now, do we think that's going to happen? No. Me and you, we've been Sabres fans since we've been born, and we've seen disaster after disaster. It would be shocking to see a Sabres team go on a historic run, much like the Penguins, winning back-to-back cups, or like the Blackhawks, having that 3-2 year stint. But it's very possible with the players that the Sabres have. The Sabres also have a lot of young talent locked up, like you mentioned, Tage Thompson, Dahlin, Samuelson, Cousins, all on long-term deals. You don't got to pay anyone new contracts. It would just be the same contracts you already have. Now, again, some of those contracts, like Samuelson, seem to be huge overpays right now. Again, that could change. He had a rough year. Other deals, like Thompson, appear to be an absolute steal. So why would you sell a team with guys on steals of contracts and the best prospects in the league when this team is going to be worth a ton of money in the future if played correctly?
That is exactly why I think there could be a prospective owner out there. They are not worth a lot now, but you just said they could be worth a lot. They could be absolute home runs in a couple years or so. And there are talks of the NHL potentially expanding to beyond 32 teams. If that's 36, if that's 40. We haven't really talked about it. I'm not totally in favor of adding more teams to the NHL, but what's to say a rich, big-time owner from a city like Atlanta, Houston, Kansas City comes in and says, "Hey, Terry, I know this team has sucked. You're losing hundreds of millions of dollars over the last decade. What if I give you $1.3 billion right now to take them off your hands?" And you just also mentioned it. They already got the new owner wouldn't have to do any work onto this team because their big guns are already locked down. They don't have a ton of money tied up into a whole lot of assets right now. This new owner would have a lot of free reign to do whatever they wanted. They wouldn't, and if they chose to also be cheap, they wouldn't have to spend a lot because their big guns, again, are already under contract. So they would only have to go in and replace the bottom six who are on 1 and 2 year deals. Hell, even our number one of the best goalies in the NHL over the last half season, is probably not going to be signed for more than 4 or 5 years. That's a reality. He's not going to be signed for 5 years or more. Maybe 4. Definitely not 5 or 6. So you don't have a lot of money tied up long term. That gives you a lot of options on how to dissect this team. It also, given all the losing, the Sabres, even though they've increased in value, they're still only the 30th most valuable NHL team in this, collective league. I think before Winnipeg is lower, and before that Arizona was lower, maybe. I'm not quite sure about that. Maybe Carolina is down there. Maybe Anaheim is also down there. Columbus for sure is down in the dark with us. But these are, again, like, you would be buying this team at a relatively low figure in today's modern sports numbers. I mean, the Commanders went for 3 billion. The Denver Broncos went for what, 4 billion as well. So to be able to get a franchise for only 900 million, and then you could flip them, turn them to a new city where they could be worth double, triple that. A smart businessman would certainly do it.
But you got to keep in mind, Terry Pegula is a very smart businessman. Believe it or not, I know a lot of us Buffalo sports fans are quick to jump on the guy and say, this guy's an idiot, this and that. Buffalo teams haven't had success. Terry Pegula has been a smart businessman since the day he was born, and he is very wealthy because of it. He knows that the Sabres are in this fringe period where they could continue to, just blow up, or they could really hit their stride here. They got a ton of good prospects. They could be one of the best teams in the league for many years to come. There's no reason he would sell the team in that era. We also know Terry Pegula has been historically cheap with the Sabres, especially over the last couple of seasons. Would a guy like that, who's looking to sell the team, invest in the arena, put a new roof on the arena, get a new Jumbotron, fix all the seats? There was a lot of work done to the KeyBank Center. Now, again, the KeyBank Center is far from the best arena in the NHL. It's probably one of the worst. But he has made some significant improvements to the arena, some very necessary improvements, may I add. And if I'm an owner on the way out, I'm not looking to do any of that. I'm looking to sell as quick as I can while the money's still there. Now, he's invested in the arena, he's invested in the team, and he's very invested in the meetings. Like I said, he sits in on every single meeting. He is very involved with the team in free agency, on draft day, all that. Kevin Adams has a good communication with him. The only thing holding Terry Pegula back is, some of his decisions in the past couple of years with management and coaching, right? I mean, how many horrible coaches have the Sabres had in the last 8 years? Every single one. I mean,
But
what
Cal,
other team has had a run like that where they've had horrible coaches and horrible GMs? So, he has lost all faith in this team, but I think he's gaining it back with Kevin Adams. If Kevin Adams ended up being a really bad GM, kind of, he just has a really bad run at it and hires, a couple more guys like Ralph Kruger, I think then Terry Pegula might be like, all right, I've had enough of this nonsense. But the fact they bring back a guy like Lindy Ruff, it shows they really want to get back to the playoffs. And finally, I think they've heard the fans' frustrations. And the attendance, that's a major issue. I'm not going to argue about that. I mean, the attendance has been pathetic in Buffalo. But it has been shown that when the Sabres have big time games, big time runs. I mean, how many games have we seen, like Ryan Miller night, for an example? Those big time games, they're going to sell out, and that crowd is going to be one of the loudest in the league.
sure, but that just hasn't happened enough since 2014. And again, Terry Pegula, he's losing money. He's losing lots of money. And say this all doesn't work out. I'm not saying Terry Pegula is looking to sell now. I'm not saying he's going to be looking to sell next year. But what happens in 3, 4, 5 years down the line if Lindy Ruff fails? This newest iteration of the rebuild fails. You have attendance dropping to 9,000, 8,000 people averaging a game. That's not enough to sustain at the NHL level. That's AHL level numbers. Not even. Those are worse. Those are terrible. The Sabres' current trajectory is going down the toilet. At what point, and this has been my point throughout the entire video, at what point does Terry Pegula say this is too much? I love the Sabres, but I cannot do it anymore. I have to do them a favor by stepping away.
Yeah, I mean, he just has so much money that I don't think it matters to him. And again, we've seen that it hasn't mattered to him because in the at rock bottom, he didn't do much to really help out, right? I mean, he continued to hire these absolutely horrible in-house options. Again, we look at guys like Don Granato. I mean, was I the only one that expected them to just go out and get Seth Appert and promote him? Because that's what we've been doing. We've been going cheap in-house, or we've been getting washed up guys and soccer coaches. I mean, it's been absolutely pathetic. But again, if Terry Pegula was to sell, I think it already would have happened. The Sabres have hit their rock bottom. They're on the way up. Whether you want to believe it or not, the Sabres will be a good team eventually. Now, again, as a Sabres fan, it's very hard to see that as the case. Again, they've failed to get a top 6 forward this season, but have really filled out that bottom 6 to Lindy Ruff's liking. And again, I think we're going to have to wait and see on this one. But in my eyes, if Terry Pegula was to sell the Sabres, I think it already would have happened. Compared to the Bills, it's a very small investment. I know it's still a lot of money, but for a guy as rich as Terry Pegula, again, what are we going to do with that money? Buy another yacht? It really won't affect the guy that much. And at the end of the day, I think he would have sold them if he was gonna already. And knowing that if you put the Sabres up for sale, I think Terry Pegula would, really try to sell it to a guy who would keep the Sabres in Buffalo. Being a lifelong Sabres fan himself, I don't think he'd want to pawn them off, even if it was for an extra couple bucks, to a guy in Atlanta who wants to relocate them. I just don't see him doing that. He would be known as a villain. Again, he owns the Bandits and the Bills. Imagine the Bandits and Bills owner sells the Sabres off to be relocated. He would be hated. And again, he would still have his fingers tied in Buffalo. It just doesn't make sense. It would never happen. The guy would not do a heel turn on the whole city and still own the Bills. I mean, it would create a civil war in Buffalo. I mean, it'd be crazy.
It probably would, but the rumors linger, and you know what? The best way to quell all of these questions, just win. Start winning.
Yeah.
Make the playoffs. Winning cures all. We saw that with the Bills. There were relocation rumors when Ralph Wilson died, and then there's the subsequent ownership battle. You saw John Bon Jovi, who was rumored to potentially move the Bills to Toronto. You saw Donald Trump also get in before he became president. He was going to keep the Bills in Buffalo, but there were other, and we made a whole video. I'm sure I can link. We're going to link that video detailing all the different faces in that process, but eventually Terry Pegula did win. He kept the Bills in Buffalo. I don't know. It's just there's that uneasy feeling right now. Wouldn't you say, Cal, about the Sabres?
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 13 years, it's absolutely disgusting for us fans that watch each and every game. We make videos on them, we talk about them. I mean, there's people out there, again, I mean, it affects us, right? This team, if they continue to go downhill, I mean, this is what we do, right? So, I mean, every time the Sabres lose, that much more people, don't care about our posts, don't care about our videos. So it has a direct effect on so many of us people of the media that, try to get, questions answered, try to talk about topics, try to have fun with the community. Eventually there's going to be no one left to, engage with if this team continues to go downhill. But I think they are finally on the way up. We saw that 2 years ago. We had a horrible year last year that kind of set us all back to, just that dark place. But you got to hope Lindy Ruff can change this franchise around. And, like I said, all you got to do is make the playoffs and your problems will be solved. We saw that with the Bills.
Absolutely. But folks, that's going to do it here for Cal and I. I want to make sure everyone subscribes and likes this video before you head on out. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Cal and I hope to see all of you in the next one. Peace.